As one of the top-selling compact cars globally, the Toyota Corolla is without a doubt one of the most important nameplates that Toyota has in their product portfolio. In fact, it was no surprise to me that Toyota would capitalize on that by introducing a crossover-based vehicle with the Corolla name called the Corolla Cross all the way back in 2022. It was exactly the kind of vehicle that dealers were asking for, a baby RAV4 that had none of the weirdness or compromises that we got with their first entry called the Toyota CHR. Now, of course, fast forward to today, and Toyota is giving the baby Corolla Cross its first round of updates for 2026. And as you can see, the changes are pretty minimal. The exterior got a slight styling refresh, while the interior got their latest infotainment system with a larger display and a redesigned center console with more interior storage. So as you can see, this week we are testing out the latest model, a 2026 Corolla Cross XSE with, of course, the hybrid powertrain. And the big question I answered, has Toyota made enough changes to their baby SUV to keep consumers interested? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we get into the styling updates that Toyota made this year, I thought I'd pop the hood and remind you guys what's powering this vehicle. Now, what makes the Corolla Cross unique is the fact that Toyota was one of the first manufacturers in this space to introduce a hybrid powertrain, which they did back in 2023. The base engine remains a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. However, this model here has that 2-liter 4-cylinder with the addition of 3 electric motors. And as you can see underneath the hood, it's not the prettiest looking engine bay, but what you find is a transverse mounted 2-liter direct and port injection 4-cylinder that runs on the Atkinson cycle. It is electrically assisted by 3 electric motors, 2 at the front and 1 at the rear, a separate E-axle, giving this vehicle electronic all-wheel drive. This powertrain is essentially the same powertrain that's also under the hood of the new Prius. The gas engine on its own delivers 150 horsepower with 140-ish pound-feet of torque. Combined output, though, with the electric motor pushes the output to around 196 horsepower total. Of course, that's with the electronic all-wheel drive system. The battery capacity is right around 1-ish kilowatt hours. It's a small battery, but this is also a full hybrid, so it can power the vehicle on pure electricity at very low speeds, at very light throttle applications. Now, it all goes out through an eCVT, electronic continuously variable transmission. And like I said earlier, electronic all-wheel drive is standard when you guys go for the hybrid, which is technically an extra $1,400 extra when you guys go for the gas-only version of the car. Now, fuel economy is very impressive. 46 in the city, 39 on the highway, about 42 combined. That's, of course, with all-wheel drive included. This vehicle is designed to run obviously on regular gas. They did shrink the fuel tank on the hybrid version to a pretty puny 10.7 gallons. So in theory, if you're getting over 40 miles to the gallon, you should do right around 430-ish miles of range on a full tank. Now, Toyota doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time. The last one we tested did it in 7.6 seconds, so we'll try this out when we get it out on the road. Top speed should be right around 120-ish miles an hour. The Corolla Cross is surprisingly still rated to tow up to 1,500 pounds, and as this car sits, it weighs in at just under 3,400 pounds, around 100 pounds heavier versus the gas-only variant, but also still not that heavy considering the fact that this is an electrified hybrid with a battery pack that lives underneath that back seat. Now, you probably noticed the car is on and running, but because it's a full hybrid, it's actually not on, but it will turn on at times to recharge the battery pack automatically. Closing the hood, let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling of the latest Corolla Cross. As you can see, Toyota made some pretty big changes to the front fascia, especially if you guys go for the hybrid. It does have a different front end versus the gas-only version of the car. My particular test car is the fully loaded XSE grade. Toyota offers the hybrid in S, SE, and XSE, painted in Calvary blue with the black two-tone roof. It's an extra $500 upcharge. I really do like this blue, although it doesn't have any metallic fleck. It's kind of like a flat blue. But as you can see, all the XSE models include the upgraded full LED headlights, which include LED low and high beams, LED turn signal, LED daytime running lights. The grille, as you can see as well, has this new design with the Toyota logo housing the radar sensor for the Toyota Safety Sense 3.0. There's also some functional air intake openings with this kind of hexagonal design, which is certainly a unique touch. The pieces here, as you can see, are non-functional with some nicely integrated parking sensors. This car still includes LED fog lights down below, which I appreciate, along with a front splitter that's also body colored. They're gonna go with the black plastic cladding. In general, I don't particularly love the look of the Corolla Cross. Even the updated model, I think, still has a kind of frumpy, just unattractive design to it. But again, nobody buys a Corolla for its attractive design. Personally, I do find the bigger RAV4 to be the better looking vehicle, but at the same time, this is also not quite as polarizing as the old Toyota CHR. Now, moving around the side profile, you can see the Corolla Cross is a small vehicle, but it's also not the smallest vehicle in its class, with a 104-inch long wheelbase with a 175.6-inch overall length. This is, again, about the same size as a Subaru Crosstrek. Keep in mind, a RAV4 is going to roughly be around 6 inches longer than this vehicle, even the current generation. You can see the wheels. These are the upgraded black finished 18-inch alloy wheels that you get with the XSE grade. The SE grade will technically have a different style wheel with a two-tone finish design to it. You have a 225 by 55 R18 Goodyear Assurance all-season tire. The brakes measure around 11 inches. You do have a fully independent suspension on this vehicle, and surprisingly, Toyota claims you have around 8 inches of ground clearance, which is not bad considering the car itself, you know, basically looks like a lifted hatchback. You can see there is some tasteful cladding along the side of the vehicle. It's not overdone like some competitors. And you can see with the black roof, you also get black painted side mirrors with integrated turn signals. No 360 camera, however, is offered along with power folding mirrors. And I also appreciate how the rear back window rolls down all the way. There is a standard size sunroof. Toyota does not offer a panel roof, but with the black roof option, it certainly looks nice. There is some nice little details here where it still spells out Corolla Cross on that upper D pillar. That's surprisingly still in chrome. I thought Toyota would black that out on this particular trim. And then moving over to the rear, this is probably a more attractive angle of the Corolla Cross versus the front for me. It definitely gives off baby RAV4 vibes. I also appreciate the full LED taillight design with this model. You can see the turn signal is even LED. There's a really nice LED accent light as well for the actual taillights. And I also appreciate the black badging here. Lots of badging, of course, the XSE, and then the hybrid badge here is their new Beyond Zero badge. And then the all-wheel drive badge is probably unnecessary because it's standard on the hybrid. But again, it lets everybody know you have all-wheel drive. You can see back here, there is a very subtle spoiler with the third brake light actually behind the rear glass as opposed to up here. No digital camera rear mirror. That rear wiper also sits at the bottom of the rear windshield. And then you can see the rear bumper also has some unpainted and black plastic elements. And it would have been nice if Toyota did a chrome outlet exhaust, but you can see the exhaust just kind of looks cheap, but at least it still is showing itself underneath that rear bumper. Now, in terms of the cargo area, you can see the Corolla Cross surprisingly still comes with a power liftgate, which is a rare feature in this class. It's only included, of course, when you guys go for the top trims, or it's, I believe, part of a convenience package extra on some of the lower trims. My test car technically has that convenience package. You can see cargo space when you guys go for the hybrid is around 24 cubic feet of storage space, which is not bad. Keep in mind the gas only version will expand that cargo capacity to around 30 cubic feet. And that's because the hybrid battery takes up space back here. You can see underneath the floor, there is a temporary spare, it looks like. Actually, no, I'm sorry, just kidding. No temporary spare. Instead, you get a fix-a-flat kit and an air compressor. Although I think you guys get the temporary spare if you guys go for the gas-only version. If you want to fold down the seats, which Toyota doesn't give you a release lever back here, it does expand the cargo to around 62 cubic feet of storage space, which is actually pretty good. 62 pushes this vehicle on the higher end of the segment, which also gives it more cargo capacity versus its main rival, the Subaru Crosstrek. Now moving on to the interior of the updated 2026 Corolla Cross. Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. As you can see, this is Toyota's latest intelligent access key. It is basically the same key you find on other models as well, with your typical buttons here for lock, unlock, power liftgate, which is a rare feature in this class, along with a panic function. The key fob itself does offer a remote start. If you push the lock button 3 times and then hold it on the 3rd try, and continue holding it until you see the lights start flashing like they are doing now. Just wait a couple of seconds. Once the light starts flashing, then the car will turn itself on. And it's a nice feature to at least have remote start from the fob itself, where you don't have to necessarily go into like the Toyota Connected Services app to pay for a subscription service and whatnot. So that's definitely a nice touch. As you approach the door handle here, you can see it's a traditional pull style. If you touch this area here, that will lock the door for you. If you want to unlock the door, just touch the back of the door handle and that will unlock the door for you. Toyota does not offer a walkaway auto lock or unlock feature. Now, as you can see, the Cavalry blue two-tone exterior color of my test vehicle is complemented very nicely by this black mixed media with the blue accents that you get with the XSE trim. This is your only color option when you guys go for the hybrid, because Toyota only offers it basically as a sportier version, which they like to basically pair up with a black interior. Toyota does offer a really beautiful brown Portobello interior on the XLE grade, which I really wish Toyota would offer that as well on the XSE or the sportier trims. But regardless, these seats are nicely bolstered. They also are, it's a premium leatherette material, but they have nice padding to it. The seats are also 2-level heated. As you can hear, the engine just came on because the remote start's still active. You have an 8-way power driver's seat, but no memory function. That's where Toyota doesn't offer that feature on this car. You have to step it up to a RAV to get a memory function. The passenger seat is just a 4-way manual. You can see the driver door panel material has a soft touch injection molded plastic with some faux stitching. It's nice and padded over here. Window controls are one touch up down for all 4. That's kind of unexpected in this class of vehicle, which is nice. There's some silver painted plastic accents here for the door handles, hard touch plastic down here, and the My Task car for an extra $800 has the optional 9-speaker JBL sound. If you guys are an audiophile, highly recommend speccing in that option for you. Now, stepping inside, you can see it has a easy step-in height with around 8 inches of ground clearance as I get in and shut the door. The door doesn't have the most solid sounding thunk. It's a little tinny sounding, but once you're inside, you can see the upgrades to the infotainment system definitely have made a difference. Now, first of all, it says not ready to drive because the remote start's still active. So basically I put my foot on the brake and then push this power button here to get it out of remote start mode. And as you can see, there's no start stop, or there's no traditional starter noise because it's a hybrid. It just whirs to life and then it says EV and it says ready in the instrument panel. As you can see, this trim and the XLE grader are going to include a fully digital 12.3-inch cluster here. This is a new feature on the top trims. The lower trims will have a combination of a 7-inch display with an analog display. No head-up display on this car, however, but you can see the upper portion of the dash is a hard touch injection molded plastic. I don't love the design of the dash. As you can see, it kind of jets out toward me when I'm sitting in this cabin, especially in the same way. It's the same story here on the passenger side. It makes this car feel even more cramped on the inside. So this dash design is pretty similar to what you find in the Corolla. I really don't like this dash design, but at least it has some nicer materials. You can see this lower portion is a soft touch injection molded plastic with some faux stitching over there. You can see this model also has the standard 10.5-inch display. This is around 2.5 inches bigger versus the standard display, which used to top out at 8 inches. It also includes features like wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It has Toyota's latest multimedia interface. And for the most part, it's quick and easy to use. It's snappy. It has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And technically, Toyota has a newer system that's in the RAV4. Haven't had a chance to spend a full week with that. It does have a cloud-based GPS embedded, but it certainly looks good. It's also within an easy reach where you can easily touch the screen. The quality and resolution is good. The steering wheel itself has a manual tilt and telescoping, which you can easily get a good, comfortable driving position. I'm surprised to find paddle shifters in this car. It's an eCVT. It doesn't really need paddle shifters. The horn sounds a little pathetic and puny. It kind of is the same horn that you hear in the Toyota Corolla. And then you can see, surprisingly, no volume knob. Instead, you have these buttons here to control the volume, or these buttons on the steering wheel. You do have knobs, at least for your dual zone climate, which is nice. You have traditional air vents with some piano black plastic, of course. Down here, you can see the center console's been completely redone, where you have a much larger wireless phone charging pad, but just one on the driver's side. That's another spot where you could put a phone, but it doesn't have a wireless charger. Your drive mode selector is here. Toyota offers a total of 3 different drive modes: Eco, Normal, and Sport. There's also an EV mode here, where you can lock it in EV mode for very short bursts. You do have 2-level heated seats where the button stays in its position that you left it in, along with a heated steering wheel, which also has the same effect for the button. You've got a USB-C charging port over here, electronic parking brake, and then your shifter here controls the eCVT with an actual sport mode here. And if you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your backup camera, which has trajectory, distance markers, parking sensors, cross-traffic braking, but no top-down 360 camera. But I will say that that quality and resolution of the screen is much better versus the earlier versions of the Corolla Cross. You can see a little bit of piano black plastic here, but it's all, a flat plastic material here for the cup holders, which is a better design because you can put, taller water bottles here, of course, where they won't necessarily get in your way. The center console has a padded lid area. It's definitely very, very small, though. You have a USB-C charging port and a 12-volt power outlet here. And like I mentioned earlier, the seats are pretty comfortable and supportive. Just a 2-level heat, manual passenger seat. And then if you open up the glove box, you can see it's a bin style. It's damped, but not lined with felt. Offers nice additional storage. And then you can see here the auto-dimming rearview mirror is a frameless design. It looks pretty nice. Along with this kind of cheaper cardboard material for the headliner, you have a standard sunroof, which opens up and tilts to vent air, but no pano roof is available on this car, which you typically don't find in this particular class of vehicle. So overall, the interior is practically identical to what you find in the current Corolla sedan, which for me, I don't really like the dashboard design. It just makes it feel a little bit more cramped, but at least the visibility outward is not bad because of the large windows. There are a couple of fitment issues that I forgot to mention. You can see that little panel here definitely doesn't fit very nicely, but other than that, the interior is about what you'd expect from an entry-level Toyota product. Let's go ahead and hop into the backseat area of this car, and that's where the Corolla Cross on paper doesn't seem all that impressive, but at the same time, when you open up the door, it seems more usable in the real world. Thankfully, you've got a pretty large opening here for access into the rear seat area. You can see the material quality is hard touch plastic back here. It is padded down here. There's a nicely integrated cup holder, which is good because there's no additional door pocket storage down there. The seats themselves, as you can see, they fold down to expand the cargo capacity. Not a completely flat floor because the hybrid battery takes up room. Also, these seats don't recline, which you don't typically find in this class. But once you get back here, as you can see, this is practically my driving position, and at 5'7", Toyota says you have around 32 inches of legroom back here. On paper, 32 inches is the worst in the segment, but I have to say this is not bad in real world testing for somebody my height. There's obviously not as much knee space as I'd like to have. Good foot space, however. The floor here is not flat, but it's also on the flatter side, so the middle passenger doesn't have to deal with a hump too much. You can see, surprisingly, there's still rear seat air vents, which is not something I found in the top version of the Honda HR-V. Just one storage cubby over here. You do have two USB-C charging ports down here, but no heated rear seats. Wasn't expecting to find that. The head restraints, as you can see, are adjustable. That beautiful mixed media two-tone combination for the seats carries over. And unlike the HR-V, you can see there is an armrest here that folds down, gives you two cup holders. In terms of the headroom space, I have a solid maybe 4 inches of additional clearance, which is not bad. The sunroof takes up room, but there's a nice little carve out here to give rear seat passengers more headroom. So overall, even though on paper the backseat area is not great, in the real world for somebody my height at 5'7", the big doors, big openings, big windows makes the backseat feel more airy than you'd expect. So as much as I dislike the subcompact SUV segment as a whole, the Corolla Cross, ever since it came out, has actually been a pretty big sales success for Toyota. The company has almost sold 100,000 units a year in 2025. So obviously this is doing well for Toyota, and the fact that they introduced a hybrid model really shows their commitment to, introducing and offering electrified powertrains across the entire lineup of vehicles. And this model that we're driving is the updated Corolla Cross XSE Hybrid. It's basically the top of the line model, which means we have the latest powertrain from the current generation Prius. A 2-liter 4-cylinder paired up with 3 electric motors, electronic all-wheel drive, of course, hooked up to an eCVT, 196 horsepower. Total. Toyota doesn't tell us the torque figure of their hybrid models. Let's go ahead and test out what we're going to get 0 to 60 wise. Now, the last one we tested out during the first drive, I can't remember where it was off the top of my head, but it was last year, we got 7.6 seconds. The last Lexus UX 300H that I tested did it in around 7.2 seconds, which has the same powertrain. This car, however, is around 200 pounds lighter. So to get the best time, we put it into sport mode here, and basically, we're on our usual stretch of road here where it's completely flat. We'll go ahead and we'll brake torque it. Actually spins out the front tires when you do that. Not a pleasant sound, but effective acceleration. Wow, 0 to 60 in 6.95 seconds there. 6.95 is pretty impressive. It's considerably faster than most of the competitors in the segment. In fact, the last HR-V that I tested did it in like 9.3 seconds. So that's a pretty significant bump in power and acceleration. It makes the Corolla Cross Hybrid among the quickest accelerating vehicles in the segment, around 0.3 seconds quicker than the last Lexus UX 300 that we tested, which doesn't surprise me. This car is around 200 pounds lighter, so that's obviously going to make a difference. Now, unfortunately, with this hybrid powertrain, you do have to listen to a lot of noise and vibration coming through whenever you're putting your foot down. Let's try one more acceleration run here. This time we won't brake torque it though. Very good instant power off the line. That electric motor really gives you the shove that you're looking for that you don't necessarily get from this class of vehicle because of their naturally aspirated engines. 7.5 seconds there. So that's with it more going uphill without the brake torquing it. Brake torquing it definitely makes a difference. I'll try it one more time up ahead on another flat surface without brake torquing and see what we actually get. But still, this acceleration is among the fastest you're gonna get in the segment, and this is also one of the most fuel efficient vehicles you're gonna get in this segment. I'll talk about my week's worth of driving for fuel economy later on, but this model, being the XSE trim, has a sport-tuned suspension. It's got a multi-link rear, fully independent suspension, which is not something that you typically find in this segment. The Corolla Cross is definitely still more toward the comfort end. Even this XSE trim, the steering is very numb and light. It doesn't really have much in terms of feedback. The suspension also feels pretty soft. When you combine that with the somewhat buzziness of the engine, it's a rather unpleasant driving experience from an enthusiast perspective. Now, most of the times people are going to be driving this vehicle at like 5/10, you're just going to be accelerating to and from, work, going to the grocery store, going shopping, whatnot. It's really not until you're really pushing the accelerator past the halfway point do you hear the engine making its, racket sounds. But most of the times the electric motor provides the torque that you're looking for to give you that instantaneous thrust. But the Corolla Cross is competent enough. It just feels soft, it feels isolated, and it also has lots of noise. I hear a lot of engine noise, a lot of road noise, some vibration coming through the steering wheel and the pedals as well. It's not the most refined driving experience. Toyota's newer hybrid system definitely has an edge there if you guys are looking for the smoothness. The RAV4, for example, is going to come to mind there. Of course, what I appreciate about the Corolla Cross is this new infotainment system and the bigger 10.5-inch display. Not the biggest in this segment, but a big improvement versus the 8-inch display that we had in the previous generation. This is just worlds better. The graphics also look better. You can kind of also expand the CarPlay view if you want to bring back the native system that's kind of toward this side over there. And it's just really easy to reach and touch. I would have just liked to see a volume knob here. That's where the Corolla Cross is lacking a volume knob. That's where I would appreciate that. But if you're just driving the vehicle normally, you can see it accelerates up to speed just fine. It just has lots of buzziness. Even when whenever you have the engine above, 3,000 RPM, it just kind of makes a lot of racket, which I don't really appreciate. But still, this is an easy vehicle to drive. It has plenty of power, and I think most people are going to find this has enough power to get you to and from where you need to go and get you up to highway speeds. You just have to deal with the noisiness of the powertrain, which Toyota really could do a better job there in terms of the NVH with this 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engine. Let's try one more quick run here. Straight road, no brake torquing. .2 seconds there, so brake torquing it shaves off around 0.3 seconds off the 0 to 60 time, which isn't bad. But again, this definitely makes this vehicle among the quicker accelerating cars. So I'm impressed. I like the hybrid powertrain. It's definitely an improvement over the naturally aspirated engine. And when you take it out of its sport mode here, and most of you will probably drive it in eco or normal, it should also the CVT will be programmed to not be upshifting or adjusting its ratios all the time to where it's making the engine be super noisy. Now, in terms of comfort and visibility, the seats in this car are actually pretty comfortable. This is Toyota's soft tech seats, which I find to be supportive. The padding feels nice. The seats are heated, but sadly no ventilated seats. You do have a 8-way power driver's seat, but no memory function. The visibility in this car is also pretty good. I can see out of the front, the side, and the rear quite nicely. Toyota does not offer a digital camera rearview mirror on this car, but you do have their Safety Sense 2.5, I believe, which has active lane keep assist. It has their automatic emergency braking, lane keep assist. It all works fairly well, and it's standard equipment across all models of the Corolla Cross, which I appreciate. This system will even brake for you automatically when it sees a car in front, even if you don't have the adaptive cruise on. It's just not best in terms of quietness. So the seats are comfortable, the visibility is good, it's just noisy, and that's where Toyota really needed to add more sound deadening to this car to address that. But I guess they want you to buy a RAV4 if you guys want something that's a little bit more quieter in that regard. Now, in terms of the fuel efficiency, let's go ahead and talk about that, because this is the whole reason why you bought the hybrid model. And this model is rated to get 46 in the city, 39 on the highway, about 42 combined. That's, of course, on regular gas. The fuel tank, however, is small on this car. It's a 10.6 gallon fuel tank. At most, this car's trip computer was telling me only 350 miles of range on a full tank. Theoretically, based on the 42, you should be able to do over 400 miles. Now, in my week's worth of testing, I actually got very good gas mileage on the city. It was getting around 45 mpg in the city in my week's worth of testing, which is excellent. On the highway, however, when you're dipping into the engine more to get more power, because right now, for example, in the city, you drive in pure EV mode, it actually will give you pure electric power at very low speeds at light throttle applications. On the highway, however, it makes the fuel economy, for me, it dropped to 36 mpg, which isn't great, but I was also constantly more onto the accelerator. I was also keeping my speeds at around 75 miles an hour, so that is going to eat into the efficiency. In my actual week's worth of testing, I averaged around 370 miles of range on a full tank, which isn't the 400 plus that it's supposed to be getting, But I imagine if you're driving this car in purely city applications, you're gonna get closer to the 450 mile mark if you can get the 45 mpg. But again, it has a small fuel tank, only 10.5 gallons. And that's partly the reason why the range isn't as good. That's where a RAV4 hybrid, for example, has a fuel tank that's almost 5 gallons larger than this. So you're gonna get even more range out of the RAV. You're gonna sacrifice that range in this car because of the smaller fuel tank. But it's still better versus the gas-powered Corolla Cross, although that model has a 2 gallon bigger fuel tank. But in general, you're still gonna get best-in-class fuel efficiency in this car, even better than the Crosstrek hybrid, and among the best-in-class for acceleration, which is very impressive. So overall, the hybrid powertrain is definitely worth it. I just want Toyota to increase the size of the fuel tank and give us a little bit more sound deadening, because this car is a little bit too noisy for my taste on highway drives. But in general, it is still a big improvement over the gas-only version of the Corolla, and I like the updates that Toyota has made for 2026. Now, with just under 100,000 units sold in America in all of 2025, Toyota actually had their best sales year ever for the Corolla Cross. I remember when this car first came out, Toyota was doing around 50,000 units. They have since doubled that number in the last couple of years. And after spending a full week with the latest 2026 model, it's pretty easy to see why so many people are drawn to this car, because if you're looking for a Corolla, a regular Corolla sedan or hatchback, it's pretty easy to get sucked into this vehicle because it offers a little bit more practicality, more capability, more space, better fuel efficiency than most of its rivals, and also more power than the standard Corolla sedan with its hybrid powertrain. As you guys saw, the hybrid powertrain in this car is really the gem, because with just under 200 horsepower, we clocked a 0 to 60 time of 6.9 seconds, which is actually pretty fast. This car is faster than this car's platform mate, the upscale Lexus UX300H, and that's because the Corolla Cross has the same power, but it's also a couple hundred pounds lighter. The downside, of course, by going with the cheaper and lighter Corolla Cross is you do have to deal with a lot of engine drone. There's a lot of road noise that comes in, a lot of engine noise that comes in. In fact, it actually sounds to me like the loudest of all the Toyota hybrids. The Toyota Prius is also pretty loud, but this car seemed a little bit louder because it doesn't have quite the aerodynamics, and perhaps it has less sound deadening versus the Toyota Prius, which again has the same powertrain. Even though this is the XSE grade, it certainly is not really sporty to drive. In fact, calling it sporty is certainly a stretch. It looks sportier than other Corolla models, but the softly tuned suspension does deliver a nice, comfortable and compliant ride. The steering is very slow, but also relatively precise. It just is totally dead in terms of feedback. This car is not the kind of crossover that kind of eggs you on to push this thing faster on your favorite back roads and in corners. That's something that some of its rivals like the Mazda CX-30 will easily do. And while the back seat is small in terms of the numbers, it actually has a decent opening and it's more comfortable in real world applications. The cargo area also is usable, but remember, this is still a small subcompact SUV, and for a little bit more, you can get a compact SUV that just offers way more in terms of practicality and features. In terms of real-world fuel efficiency, getting nearly 45 mpg in mostly city driving is very impressive, but remember that smaller fuel tank is going to make this car feel a little bit thirstier than it is, especially if you're coming from a RAV4 hybrid, which will easily do over 500 miles of range. This car, you'll struggle to get around 400 miles of range, again, because of that smaller fuel tank. Now, in terms of availability and pricing, the 2026 Corolla Cross has been on sale for a few months now, and you can basically get into an L version with front-wheel drive for just under $25,000, which sounds like a pretty good deal. It's a couple thousand more than a Corolla sedan, and to be honest, it's probably worth every penny because of the additional ground clearance and capability and comfort that you get with this car. Now, if you guys want to step it up to the hybrid will cost you around $28,000. So on paper, it seems like it's $4,000 more. However, remember the hybrid comes standard with all-wheel drive. It comes standard with bigger alloy wheels, which if you add those features to the base Corolla Cross L, it'll push the price to around $28,000. So in reality, Toyota charges around $2,000 more for the hybrid, which doesn't seem like a bad deal. Most of you are probably gonna step it up to at least the SE trim for around $32,000. The XSE that I'm showing you here starts at around $34,000 with destination. And then of course, when you add in some of the options that my test car has here, like the upcharge for the paint, the convenience package, the JBL sound system, for example, and destination, you're looking at an as-tested price of just over $37,000. That's right, this vehicle here is around $37,000 fully loaded, which is honestly pretty expensive. At that price point, you could get into a RAV4, because if you guys remember, the new RAV4 starts at just under $32,000, while this car is $37,000. However, keep in mind, if you want to get a RAV4 XSE that's fully loaded, you'll be paying around $45,000, but you could also get into like a RAV4 SE for around $39,000, although it will lack like the leather seats, for example, that this car has, or the leatherette seats. At that point, I personally would rather spend an extra $2,000 and get the RAV4 SE and just deal with the cloth seats as opposed to having this smaller car. But at the same time, if you want a fully loaded model and you prefer something smaller, this car is still around $8,000 less than a fully loaded version of a RAV4. But in general, I do find the Corolla Cross to be appealing. I just personally think for a little bit more money, you could get yourself a mid-trim compact car like a RAV4 as opposed to getting a fully loaded version of this. This car only really makes sense if you're gonna get it in a mid-trim, which you can get into like a Corolla SE hybrid, a Corolla Cross SE hybrid for the low to mid $30,000 range. Well, all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full detailed overview on the latest version of the 2026 Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.